Steven Universe is easily the strongest character in his titular show and one of the stronger Cartoon Network characters of all time too. Despite his pacifist nature, Steven has been shown to hold his own against certain threats, certain anime characters could only dream of taking on. But how far could Steven go against the Hazbin Hotel universe? And yes, the majority of the drive to make this video came from the memes of Steven no-diffing box. Don't judge me. So to go about this, since Steven is the main protagonist for his show, he'd have no reason to fight against the core crew that works for the Hazbin Hotel, especially, Charlie. It would be insanely out of character for both of them to start throwing hands with each other. So I wanted to focus mostly on Hazbin Hotel's antagonists for this video, and that does include Alastor, don't worry. So for those who may be unfamiliar with Steven's game, as my time covering that series on a consistent basis has since passed, here's what we got for him. Shape-shifting, superhuman strength, weapon proficiency, light speed when in pink form, flight, self-healing, a sonic scream, and anywhere between, wall level to moon level attacking potency depending on the form he's in. As the difference between his kid self for the first 3 seasons or so to the end of the series is a pretty big gap. His hybrid human gem body does give him some unique immunities as well. Since he's got pink diamond gem, his durability is also insane, like handling light speed space travel when the other crystal gems couldn't even keep their main forms together. So yeah, he's basically a weaker version of Sailor Moon if I were to make a light comparison. It's pretty insane. So the main 2 big bads Steven would be dealing with are Adam and Lute for its first season arc. Lute is still technically part of the main Hazbin story as of writing this video, but she still played a major part in the events of that season. So Lute is a very capable fighter who's shown to hold her own against Vaggie and even overpower her during season 2's climax before Abel stepped in. I just don't believe Lute has the striking power nor speed to do anything to Steven, even in his base form, let alone time skip, pink, or monster form. This is the kid who was tanking scythe slashes from Spinel. Even with Steven's pacifist nature, angels like Lute and Adam are not ones to listen to reason. And that's kind of been the case with most of the Hazbin villains and antagonists so far. They're, very anti-redemption and making themselves better. But if we still run with the idea that Lute would be indestructible unless pierced by an angelic weapon, I guess Steven would literally need to yoink her sword mid-scuffle. The whole angelic steel thing is somewhat inconsistent though, since we saw Lute lost her arm trying to pull it out from under the hotel's rubble and it never grew back. So Steven most likely blitzes the hell out of her. Steven's younger self, on the other hand, might struggle a bit because he didn't really get a full grasp on his gem abilities until around at the tail end of season 4, correct? So maybe the season 3 and earlier versions of Steven with no access to fusion would struggle, as it felt like a lot of his fighting W's early on were through fusions like Stevani and Smoky Quartz against Jasper, for instance. Adam would obviously be a bit trickier, as he's way more durable, even with getting hit by, angelic weapons, and his holy light blasts really pack a punch. Then again, Steven's shield can practically tank anything without breaking, as shown when Rose used it to save herself, Garnet, and Pearl from the Diamond's corruption blast that affected the entire planet Earth. I don't think even holy light blast from an Archangel will be an issue for Steven, at least his older self. Their weapon proficiency skills are pretty close though. Adam's use of his guitar axe to deflect Alastor's tentacles. Steven may need to, be in his pink form to do any significant damage to Adam here, methinks. As we saw Adam tanking quite a bit of hits from Charlie, Lucifer, and Al. Steven's striking power is obviously way stronger in pink form as he shattered Jasper with ease. Steven needs to be pushed to an extreme limits to enter his pink form though, but Adam is definitely someone who could get him there with how awful his personality is. His, vulgar language is one thing, but he'd be just as much of an antithesis to Steven as he was to Charlie, because he believes nobody who's made mistakes deserves to change their lives for the better. That kind of commentary mid-fight could definitely get under Steven's skin if Adam pushes enough against him. But at that point, Adam is screwed because I don't think he stands a chance against Pink Steven, let alone Monster Steven. Kid Steven, though, more than likely loses. He's just way too inexperienced to go up against someone like Adam at that point in his life. Plus, both Adam and Lute have no issue harming children under certain circumstances. The whole reason Vaggie's wings were clipped was because she let a little demon boy escape extermination. I do want to bring up Sarah real quick, too, because she did have a bit of an antagonist role in season 1. However, there's no scenario where I could see she and Steven actually fighting. Hazbin season 2 is living proof Sarah deeply regretted her actions, or I guess lack thereof, for allowing the exterminations to happen for those past 7 years. She is more of a diplomat than fighter, even though she does have strong ability as the head seraphim. The point is, Steven and her can work it out. Young Steven included. As even though time skip Steven still went through a lot of personal struggles and growth in future, the majority of the experiences we witnessed was through the lens of his younger self. His younger self was the one who got the 3 diamonds needs to chill out. If Penchas of all people can get through to Sarah with a song, then there's no doubt Steven can. Penchas succeeding in that regard is like if Lapis or Peridot sung at Blue Diamond or something to get her to relax. Now for the Season 2 antagonists, the 3 Vs. Velvet's another one who might give young Steven a little bit of trouble. Again, a lot of his combat experience pre-time skip was him shielding himself from attacks and, trying to, talk it out with his enemies. While Connie was the more offensive fighter, or, the other 3 crystal gems for that matter, he always had people in his corner that allowed for, such incredible growth. We've seen how fast and skilled Velvet is with dangerous weaponry, so while I don't think she can brute force her way through Steven's defenses, she'd have to catch him off guard in some capacity to get any damage in. But the moment Steven hits 816, she can't do anything. If this Steven can take on Adam the way I believe he can, then there's no universe, where Velvet can do anything. It's a massive gap. Valentino, I'd say, is about the same situation, but Child Steven has a tougher time with him than with Velvet by default since he's stronger. Most of Val's power comes from his skills with a gun and brute strength, as even though he did eventually lose, was still holding his own decently well against both Husk and Cherry, with the former of the two having Overlord level strength even after losing his soul to Alastor. Sometimes he'll use red smoke to conceal his location so it's harder to see where his bullets are coming from. Again, Steven's bubble and shield are probably fine against bullets considering what we've seen it hold up against, but Val could still land in some hits maybe and take the W against young Steven, then proceed to get washed by post-time skip Steven, as of course is tradition. And since Vox is the undisputed strongest of the Vs, he's the only one I can see actually beating young Steven with not a ton of difficulty whatsoever considering what we've seen him do in Season 2. Late speed movements, electric shocks powerful enough to leave cracks in the pavement, and loads of range with all the wires he can control at once. Shockwave is like his own personal weapon as far as I'm concerned, and that had Alastor on the ropes for a bit. Season 2 finale Vox in that, demon form is up there in strength compared to, most of the pre-diamond level threats from Steven Universe, I think. So younger Steven most likely loses this battle with, no difficulty on Vox's end, especially if Shockwave is working together with him. In hindsight, I feel like Vox trying to use the Might of Lilith weapon against Alastor just did more harm than good. Like, sure, it's, a guaranteed kill, but, that brother's name is shit. And just get back in there up and close at that point, Post-time skip Steven, in base might actually have to try a little bit, as in, I think he'd be, fighting Vox in base before being forced into pink form to properly clutch the win. Because at that point, Vox can't do anything again. And just like Adam, Vox is someone who is very good at getting under people's skin and prying at their insecurities, despite being incredibly insecure himself. So bringing out Pink Steven probably won't be very difficult for him to do, just like how I said with Adam. Now for Intimidation Man. Admittedly, he did beat some of the Fraudgations by the end of Season 2, but the meme is still very funny to me. Considering Alastor is comparable in strength to Vox, but weaker than Adam, it goes about the same for him against Steven. Probably has little to no trouble beating the kid version. His nerf self did mostly okay against both Val and Velvet, whom I felt both of them could do decent against Kid Steve. Like if he went big mode against Kid Steven like he did against those Lone Shark demons, then he more than likely breaks through the bubble defenses at that age. Plus the tentacle / mini demon spawns can only be held off for so long when he's at this low of a power level. But again, Al will slowly lose over time the further Steven is pushed and the older he gets. I haven't really been bringing up Corrupted Steven like that because it almost feels like a no-dud. None of these major antagonists or villains can do anything to him in that form. It took the combination of all the crystal gems, the diamonds, and Spinel to get him to calm down the rampaging. Even though this guy's not a villain or an antagonist, the only Hazbin Hotel character I can see giving both Pink Steven and Monster Steven a run for his money is Lucifer himself. Admittedly, in that short I did ranking Heaven's Angels by strength, I put Lucifer lower than I should have in hindsight, but that short was also made before Season 2's final episodes aired, so I didn't realize the sheer destructive power Lucifer was able to emit from his body at the time. Can't really blame people for pointing this out either because YouTube shorts are formatted in a way where seeing the upload date of a short is only visible if you go out of your way to check, which I imagine most people don't do, and fair. Okay, mini rant over. But yeah, aside from Lucifer's weird condition where he can't harm sinners, he's been implied over and over to be the strongest being in hell, with the only other demons that really seem to rival his overall power being the rest of the 7 deadly sins. The holy light charged from his body via Carmilla's weapon was enough to break the barrier placed around heaven by Sarah and other high-ranked angels, then continue to plow its way through the entirety of heaven's orbit, even further past the skies of nothingness. I don't think it's crazy to assume this blast is stronger than the Diamond's Corrupting Blast, which while strong, technically didn't even shatter all the remaining gems on Earth as it was intended, rather corrupting them for the foreseeable future. The other deadly sins, it's kind of up in the air, but if we're going off hierarchy, then I suppose Satan would be the other one who'd have the best chances at taking Steven down, but he's only been in one episode of Hell of a Boss as of now, so we don't exactly know the extent of his power quite yet. And to reiterate, I don't think Steven would have any reason to fight the main Hazbin members outside outside of Alastor, all of them would get along pretty decently considering how similar his personality is to Charlie's, at least when it comes to the concept of redemption and singing. Lots and lots of singing. So to sum it all up, Steven struggles a bit as his kid self against most of the antagonists in Hazbin, besides Sarah, but his base time skip self, pink form, and especially monster form make quick work of the rest, potentially getting fully roadblocked by Lucifer or Satan. Bit of a shorter video this time around. Happy New Year, by the way. I'm hoping to do more of these types of videos this year if possible, especially when there's major gaps in between show releases. Hazbin Season 2, Fiona and Cake Season 2, Hell of a Boss, and Digital Circus are all on breaks right now until further notice. So instead of just sitting around waiting for those to come back, I want to do more of these power scale, versus type videos. Let me know what you guys think of Steven versus Hazbin Hotel characters in the comments below. I'd love to know your thoughts. Like, subscribe, all that good jazz. But for now, I will see you guys next time. Peace out, take care, bye-bye.